Look, folks, it's not a surprise that Pete Buttigieg equated Bernie Sanders with Donald Trump. And he's not the first one to do that. In a lot of liberal circles, they see Bernie Sanders as just as dangerous as Donald Trump. Why? Why? Because they're both trying to build a mass movement. They're both stirring up working people, and that is inherently dangerous. The masses are dangerous when they're in motion, right? This is liberal ideology, and it's very, very dangerous. If you're a Marxist in the United States, you can't be on the liberal left either, because the liberal left does not share your optimism. It does not share your love of the people. It doesn't seek to empower the people. It sees the people as a dangerous mob that must be controlled. So what do you do as an American Marxist? What do you do? What do you do? Right? You can't be Michael Crichton. You can't deny global warming. But at the same time, you can't be on the right. I mean, the right is awful. It's everything you're against. What do you do? The answer is you get to the masses. You get to the masses. And you get to the masses with two things. The first thing, which is American rebirth. The United States was founded on racism, founded on slavery, founded on the slaughter of the indigenous people. And if we are going to get ahead as a country, we need to be reborn. I've said many times before, and I will say it again, that if something is conceived in an impure way, it is corrupted. If the way something is established is impure, the product is impure. In legal terms, they talk about fruit of a poison tree. And yes, at one point in the United States, there were a lot of people who had houses and cars and lived a very prosperous life. We know about the American dream, the so-called American dream, the 1950s. But we know that back in the 1950s, when there was a booming economy, when people had houses and cars in the suburbs, those houses and those cars were dripping with blood. It was the blood of the indigenous people, the blood of the black people who were living under Jim Crow segregation. It was the blood of the people of Vietnam, the blood of the people of Korea, the blood of the people of Latin America. That the once prosperous times for the United States were built on a pile of corpses. Right? And this is what all these people that want to give a body count about communism don't seem to understand. Right? You couldn't have had capitalism without colonialism. You couldn't have had capitalism without the transatlantic slave trade. You couldn't have had capitalism without the slaughter of the indigenous people. You couldn't have had capitalism without sweatshops working children to death. Right? You couldn't have had capitalism without the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. You couldn't have had capitalism without the many, many people who died laying the railroads. That capitalism, from its inception, has been a genocidal system. That just to create capitalism required something called the primitive accumulation, in which the peasants were kicked off their land, in which they began executing people for the crime of being homeless, for vagrancy or vagabondage. Read about primitive accumulation. It's one of the most interesting sections of Karl Marx's Capital, where he goes into great detail describing how capitalism began as a system with mass genocide, the clearing of the Scottish Highlands, the clearing of the commons, that the primitive accumulation that established capitalism, when the capitalists seized power from the feudal aristocracy, when they created private property and cleared the feudal estates and commons, when they transformed the peasantry into wage workers, millions of people died, and millions of people have kept dying. They have died in their ugly wars. You can talk about World War I, where 20 million people, 20 million workers were sent to their deaths so that the capitalists and imperialists could carve up the world among themselves. Look at how many people lost their lives when the capitalists were determined to keep their grip on Vietnam. And they're determined to keep their grip on Korea. When they were determined to keep their grip on Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya. The body count of capitalism is astoundingly high. It's incalculable. Talk about the millions killed in Africa. You can talk about the millions killed in Latin America. You can talk about the crimes committed against the Chinese people before they won control of their country, right? The United States was established in the process of primitive accumulation, in the process of capitalists seizing control of the world for themselves and crushing all kinds of lives all over the world. And because of that, if the United States is going to get better, it's going to require a political, economic, and spiritual refoundation. And this is my concept of the American rebirth, that the USA must be reconceived. A spirit of brotherhood and kindness and compassion and shared destiny. That's one thing that absolutely must be made clear. The other thing that needs to be made clear is that if you really want that human spirit of growth to return, if you really want that optimism that keeps people going to return, if you want that motor-mindedness, that American mentality, that work hard and get ahead, that achieve your dreams, that entrepreneurial mentality, if you want to get that, socialism is the way. It's socialism that turned both Russia and China into superpowers. It's socialism that made Cuba, a small island in the Caribbean, known all over the world for its healthcare system. It's socialism that raised millions from poverty and continues to do so around the world. And that socialism, if it's going to be successful, it's going to capture the imagination of the American people, it can't be a socialism built on, fuck this shit, give me free stuff. Not that I fully disagree. I don't fully disagree, right? That is the mindset you find among a lot of Bernie-crats. They say, fuck this shit, give me free stuff. And they're not wrong. Corporations get free stuff all the time. Banks get free stuff all the time. Billionaires get free stuff all the time. So why shouldn't you get some free stuff, right? The system is rigged, so fuck this shit, right? The system is rigged, fuck it. But fuck this shit, give me free stuff is not a mentality that is going to save America. It's not a mentality that is going to inspire people to build something. It's not appealing to the best in people. The fuck this shit, give me free stuff attitude will not bring socialism to the United States. The way for socialism to come to the United States is it needs to be a socialism that captures the motor-mindedness and the creativity and the drive within people. Socialism is not about crushing people's creativity. Socialism is about unleashing people's creativity and lifting it from the restraints of the profit system. Socialism is about allowing human brilliance to go further than ever before. Socialism is about getting beyond the chaos of the market, the system where people are homeless because there are too many houses, where people are hungry because there's too much food. Socialism is about allowing us to come together as a species and rebuild not just one country, but the whole planet in a rational way. Socialism is about humans asserting themselves and fighting for their future. Socialism is not about greed. Socialism is not about individuals crushing each other. Socialism is about humanity coming together to work for building something better for all of us. It's about applying human reason to the economy with rational central planning. But socialism is also not pessimistic. It's not dark. Socialism is the human species asserting itself and asserting that no, we're not going to go extinct. No, we're not going to stop growing. Socialism is an ideology that understands that life will not be contained. Life breaks free. It expands to new territories, crashes through barriers painfully, and maybe even dangerously. And on that note, that is the conclusion of my opening remarks.